And what we're going to do now is, I have a question I'm going to start everybody off with, and then we can have an organic discussion. We've produced Donna Reid Talks Voice because we think it's actually really beneficial to see other people's lessons as well, because when you're in your lesson, you're only thinking about what am I doing, like what's happening for me right now, and it's not so easy to see it from the outside. So my first question is, from watching everybody today, and this is season 3, so from watching everybody in season 3, were there any insights that you found from watching everybody else today?
So I just want to say there are 2 things that come through whenever I hear Donna's lessons of other people. Either I catch like last 5 minutes of the lesson before me, or today during this exercise. Number one is that it's incredibly comforting to see that everybody goes through the same stuff. So everybody would say, oh, it sounded so weak. Oh, it was such a big break, but it was nothing like that. So it kind of gives me a lot of comfort that it's not just my experience, that's the experience. And the second thing, I just take great pleasure in hearing I have this title for that, live voice, by which I mean it's completely free. It acquires some quality you cannot really describe, but it's extremely touching. That's what actually goes into your heart. Is when you have this freedom in your voice, it has those unnoticed little details that we just take subconsciously in. And when I start hearing, it's just, I just enjoy it so much, hearing that. And so that's what usually comes up for me.
Yeah. Monique?
So I grew up being told very specifically what a good singer was, which was Sarah Brightman. If you're not like Sarah Brightman, then you're not a good singer. If you can't sing that way, you're not a good singer, which took me a lot of years to get over that. But just watching the different lessons, not only is everyone's voice different and good, but then obviously a testament to Donna and her teaching and why she's top tier, is that there isn't a one-size-fits-all for everyone. It's, oh, because you're this way, or this is what's happening today with you, then this is what we're going to do. Not, you're not good, clearly, like you have to push you, or you're not on that level or whatever. And it's a thing to be able to watch other people and be like, no, everyone's lesson was completely different.
Mm-hmm.
If I can emphasize anything, that's the thing I emphasize the most. Everybody's an individual. Everybody needs to be taught differently. Everybody is different. There is no one size fits all. That's one of the main tenets of the way I teach.
Yeah, and I don't know about anyone else on the call, but I've definitely gotten many times of like, if you don't do it this way, then you're not good. It has to be done this way, or you're never going to be in the business. You're never going to be this. It has to be done exactly this way. And it's just not accurate, especially going from all of Donna's students who sing all over the world and sing on Broadway and sing in opera. That's clearly not the case.
Right.
I think for me, if I can say, is that even if everybody's different, on top of that is that when you come in, you're also different every day because of what happened yesterday and your voice in a different situation. Today I was lower. Some days just come in, oh, everything flies. And some days it just doesn't, because what we do daily also affects. Maybe you went to a restaurant with a party last night and you talked a lot and your voice is a bit more tired. Well, you're not going to have the same lesson. Doesn't mean that you can't sing, but it's just like knowing how to do it and how to have that free moment. It just, you can still do it even though you have those obstacles that are new. And that's what I find also with Donna. Sometimes I would come in and I would feel like this and I would have to sing something like, oh my God, this will never come out. And it does, you know, and that's what I'm thankful with Donna, is that free and not trying to place it, because just letting it go and working. And it's a difference also between working, because I always thought as being a dancer in physicals, like, oh, I need to work to make this happen and I need to place it there. But it doesn't, because as soon as you place it there, it just doesn't work out the way you want it.
Yeah.
You have to find a certain, who knows, but I'm going there, and just let it go. And usually that comes out better.
I found that from watching both Monique and Martin, like with Monique's lesson, I'm a jaw mover for the yeah. Like if I don't go yeah, and for years Donna and I have been like, don't move your jaw. And recently it's been like, but it's so much easier for me if I do move my jaw. And you know, we've come to the point like I'm a jaw mover for that exercise, and so it was nice to see Monique be not a jaw mover. So I can be like, oh, some people really aren't jaw movers. That's so interesting. And also for Martin, like the way that you feel that it is not, that it's shifting so much, or that it's a weak sound, like you hear, and I've followed your lessons before in live, and I've heard you also be like, but it's so like flimsy, and you're like, it absolutely is not. And so I'm interested in how you'll feel about it when you listen back to it now, and hear it from the outside, because it's true in your head, in your own like oral sensations of your head, it's like ugh. And like for me, I have to like belt my top notes, and
He means notes above a C, top notes.
Yeah, like my high notes, I have to consider them belty, or they get like Donna says, they're feckless. They're like because in my brain, kind of like Monique said, like my brain has some kind of idea about what a head voice is supposed to sound like, and it's probably Sarah Brightman is what's in my head.
Right. Well,
and
Gabi, when we've gone to those high notes, we've talked about that, haven't we? About how it almost can be like a belty kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, and again, the head voice that you came to me with was that kind of weak thing that we're not getting it now. You're getting much more chest voice in there. Can you talk to the how about how that feels? You know, that different kind of a head voice feel that's got more chest voice in it.
Yeah. So that's a perfect example of it, because with me, mostly what I get called in for, mostly what I'm cast is only belty stuff. And so just the few years that I was like away from performing, in my mind, I've always thought of it as two different things. And almost immediately getting back with Donna, she's like, it's not different. Like you can make it all work. Like you can use the same skills that you use for like what you're used to and apply it to this. And it really does make a difference. Like we're taught to think it's two completely different things. Like you can't do both. They're two completely different things. And it's the same technique. And that's what I love about Donna. She just teaches you great techniques. So you can literally sing whatever and it sounds like you're using the same skills, and you can change it up, which is a skill, but the technique is there. And that's what I love about working with her.
You know, at times, I just want to kind of tag on to what you just said. When I started experiencing for the first time the freedom of singing it this way, singing it that way, it's just the vowel in approaching, all those details that we're so familiar with. There was a point when it became a little overwhelming. I'm like, finally, I felt like I can try to work on actual songs. And I started doing this, and I'm like, but what kind of sound do I choose? There are too many. I have to settle on something. Because there's so many roads, which is kind of a jazzy thing, because in a moment you always choose, where do I go? And now I added, where do I go with the tone, with the sound, with the mix? So it's just incredible, the opportunities that Donna gives you. It's just the whole world of singing, and you just have to embrace it and kind of move on as she does in a moment.
Could I ask? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, because I wanted to add to this, because I think she's right, because it's also like acting, you know, when you see something and you see someone that's really good, you see all those ups and downs and doing there, because if one is always in the same tone and gives you all the same thing, you don't enjoy, and you just don't feel all, you know, that character doesn't bring you to all those emotions. This is the same thing with singing. When you do, and then you put a little bit of this there, but then you put more chest, and you add of that, you add all those colors, and all those colors is what keeps you listening and make it more interesting and fun. If you always sing with the same thing and you always do the same note, the same color, then those colors it's nice,
Yeah.
but it's get boring. But the other one, when you're capable of doing all those differences, that's when it's really interesting and oh, I know what I'm doing. That's what I found that I discovered with Donna, or you could do the F flow this way, but then you can make it this way too, and let's try a bit more breathy. And depending on the songs, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anya, it was really clear watching that with yours too, with your lesson just now, like hearing the different ways that you did the music. And it's just a matter of making the intent different, or making the cat is trying to open the cabinet of a kitchen cabinet. So that's what I'm saying.
Not quite that easy. I worked hard at it, but
Yeah, but it's well, yes, exactly.
yeah.
but she makes it seem easy.
She does. She
Yeah.
does.
I asked Gabi in the beginning of her lesson, but I wanted to ask the three of you as well. What do you find different with the virtual lesson as opposed to live? I mean, are there advantages, disadvantages? It's not all bad, it's not all great, but what is it that you find? How can you comment on that?
For me, with the virtual lesson, I'm able to remember 15 minutes before that I have to be there and not be across town and make the lesson on time. Which
I second that.
but realistically, like that is a thing. Like, you don't have that thing of traveling. You don't have to worry about that, and especially if the subway, which is a nightmare, and then there's not really a situation where you have to get to your lesson stressed. And you spent the first half, because the MTA was a shit show, and then you spent the first 10 minutes like in that space instead of being like, no, we're here. Like, as opposed to you're like, oh, I'm just gonna make coffee and then I'm gonna get on my lesson.
That's a plus. That's a plus.
It's a huge
And
plus.
Anya, who's in California, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this without.
Absolutely, it's a treasure for me because I could only do in person while I was in New York, which was only for a year. And now I am actually doing twice a week because there is no getting to a lesson or getting from the lesson. You can pack it. So there's definitely convenience. I'm surprised how the experience is better than I expected. And I had other remote lessons. In that situation, I really, my ability was really impacted by asynchronous nature. So the teacher, it was a different kind of lesson, and a teacher had to accompany or lead me on. And it was, and she couldn't hear me if she plays, so there's definite impacts. In this voice technique lesson, on my side, there are practically no impacts because I am not listening over the wires. But I imagine, Donna, for you, it's an impact because you sometimes don't quite hear the way it comes out over here. So I'm sure it makes it more difficult for you, but not for me.
That's interesting to get that feedback. Yes, it is slightly more difficult because I don't hear all of the nuances I would like to hear. But I am fortunate in that, as you said, I don't accompany. So I don't have to be playing something the same time that you're singing. Now, if you were live, if I play something along with you, does it help you? Yeah, it kind of supports what you're doing and all of that. But you know what? Again, I can work around that. I'm learning how to hear sounds differently. And what I also discovered early on in the virtual teaching is that nobody hears live singing anymore. Everybody hears singing through some kind of a recorded device. So I'm hearing people through a recorded device, and I'm working on the voice under the circumstances pretty much that they're going to be heard on, so that's kind of a plus,
So I did a intensive basically for about a month and a half, and just between starting with Donna, I was going in front of the same teachers and casting people that I had been working with for years. And in the years, like I said, I wasn't performing, but I would get called in for something. So then I'd randomly have to sing something and it was just too hard, too high. And you see the same people when you're auditioning. And I was performing for these same people, and they kept commenting on my voice, and it wasn't in a complimentary way, because now it's like they want you to focus on your acting and your voice is like an afterthought, but they all kept like commenting on my voice. They're like, your voice is so strong, your voice is amazing, and I was like, I've seen you off for the last 2 years and you've never said this before. And it's only because literally I've been with Donna for the last 3 months again, and working with her only in that short amount of time has completely 180'd it. Like, these same people who said nothing about my voice before are like, your voice is so good. Your voice is so good. Like,
Yeah.
it's so crazy. And that's not, I mean, obviously we work together, but that's all Donna, because these same people I've seen for years, and that's never been the first thing they've commented on. So it's been like, these lessons, I feel like we're getting to it quicker. Just like I said, like, it's just so much more efficient, where like the growth in my voice is like amazing, because she just changes it up right on the spot, like from week to week. It's just, I can't talk enough about it. It's amazing.
Thank you. That's sweet. Thank you. But, you know, it does say that even though it's virtual, you know, big things can happen. And as Nellie can tell you, I was against it for the longest time. But then again, I'm always against technology until it's like, oh, yeah, that thing. Okay, I'll do that. You know, that's just.
And you're pleased as punch about it.
Oh, then I am like all about it. All about it. So, yeah, you know, so this tells you that even virtually, when we're constrained, you know, to do things, you know, you make it work. It goes along with the way I teach singing. We have to be flexible. We have to move with the times. We have to be non-rigid, and we have to, you know, if our voice is doing this and we want it to be better, to make it better, it's got to do something different. You can't be rigid. You have to say, okay, I'm ready to go in another direction because I want it to be better. You can't say, let me quote Einstein, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's how a lot of people work. You know, they will sing those same 5 exercises over and over again and expect it to somehow miraculously get better. And that's just not going to happen. So we have to be less rigid, you know, move along with things, let things flow, let things be spontaneous.
Yeah. And one of the amazing surprises of this starting learning with Donna was the speed of change, because in all my attempts before, there was no positive change in my singing. If anything, I became more constrained, because now I was in a situation, I don't know whether it's the right voice or the wrong voice. I was afraid to manage my voice on my own. I only exercised or did vocal thing with a teacher, in the presence of teacher, because I needed the feedback, whether it was the right. I could never follow any command, like move your vocal box or don't move. Any commands I heard, I could never follow. So I was almost like frozen in my imperfection, unable to do anything. And people around me were telling me, oh, don't worry. Eventually, unknown future moment, it will start slowly seeping into your singing, into your actual singing when you're on stage or sing jazz or whatever. It's the same technique that will start seeping into your singing. It was not happening. I spent months and months and months. It was not happening. And then I came to Donna, and like in a month or two, all of a sudden, I'm beginning to gain a little inch of control and then another inch of control, so that the speed with which I started changing, still mind-blowing to me.
And
that's
I think
the thing. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, continue.
Oh, that just to piggyback off of that, and going off of Gabrielle's story of that, the thing that's so like shocking and impressing to me is kind of like how little time it takes.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, you need to commit 2 years. Like, no, it's like in a month, you're just going to be like, this is already like leaps and bounds from where I was.
Yeah.
And that's, and again, it's, I mean, again, it's just a testament to how brilliant Donna is. And, you know, that's why we're all here.
Yes.
And for me, I think also is that you accomplish something that's like, oh, I didn't like that, and then that gets better, and then it says, okay, is that going to go? And then there's something else that, okay, now this getting better, and then it's like, okay, and I was like, oh, now this is getting better. It's like there's never any ending. I'm like, I'm sorry, Donna, I'm gonna be with you until like I'm 95 years old. So you better stay. It just never ends, you know. And every time you go in, it's like, oh my God, now it's this. Okay, now let's work on that. It just keeps stretching and stretching, and it keeps just getting freer and freer, and it's just amazing. It really is. I mean, I've tried so many people before, and I've never was able to accomplish what I've accomplished with you, and the flexibility and the freedom and all the crazy things that, you know, they ask these days, because when you do record, you know, now everything is high and belty and craziness, and sometimes you might have that naturally, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can ruin your voice really quickly, you know, and a lot of people do. But when you learn with what you do, you just know, okay, I could do this because I want to place it here, and then you're fine. And I cannot thank you enough. I've tried so many people, and I'm so glad I found you, and I'm not going away. Sorry.
Thank you.
You're stuck with me.
No, Martin, you mentioned something that you can damage your voice, and I think I did, because I basically sung all my life in different styles. And somewhere around the age of 40, after 40, all of a sudden I start singing in how I usually sing, and the voice doesn't come out. I felt like I lost almost half of my voice, if not more. And it was not getting better with age. It was kind of progressively shutting more and more down. And I thought that that is gone, that my voice, it's aging thing, my voice is gone. Let me work with whatever is left of it. And in a course of studying with Donna, I feel like my voice is growing back. It's like I'm just shocked.
And you know, that's another myth, the whole myth of aging. Oh, well, you know, you're getting older, of course, your voice is not going to be, you know, the same, and da 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 da. I have had, when I used to teach at AMDA, I've had 18-year-olds come to me and they say, oh yeah, well, I used to have the notes above a C, but my teacher said my voice is getting older and now I don't have those notes anymore. You're 18 years old.
Me.
What is, who told you that?
Me, I had that. Remember, Donna, when I came to you, I had a teacher for one semester. I had notes both directions, never a problem. No one ever, there was never a note I couldn't sing, never. And this is through high school and starting college and performing in New York. And then
as someone who went to high school with her, I can vouch this to be true. It's 1,000% true.
And I went to one semester with a different voice teacher, and it was the type of lesson where they wanted you to sound like you were in their studio, right? So they wanted everyone to sound where you would come into their studio and the person before you, you'd be like, oh, they're trying to make me sound exactly like that. So it's so interesting. Or you could hear them in class and be like, oh, you must be in this person's studio because you sound like Sarah Brightman. Which is great if you're Sarah Brightman. But they're within a semester and a half, I had nothing below a middle C, and I had nothing above a B, like a middle B. And my range had gone from here to here. And I remember saying to you, Donna, I feel like my range has gone like boom, 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 boom. And now I'm here. And nobody said I was aging because I was 20 years old, but it definitely was like, oh gosh, this is how this is going to be. And I came like, oh, well, I guess I'll just be a dancer, which is ridiculous because I'm not a dancer. And when I came to Donna, I had one lesson, and in one lesson, she had me back down to the F, below middle C. And in one lesson, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is where I need to be. And it took me a long time to get all the full range back, but now I'm whatever. What do you want me to sing? It's fine. If you don't mind, I'm going to switch the conversation just for a second to the tech portion of it. Because Donna, I know you were hesitant to start doing digital lessons. And just to be clear for everyone, I work with Donna on the tech side. Also, I manage the YouTube channel and I do a lot of the editing and stuff like that. But we had started with doing virtual lessons, Donna, before coronavirus. And
that's true, yes.
it was something that you had wanted to do starting in 2020. And so we had like little by little started it, and you and I had done some testing on it, and you had, I think, 2 students you started with that were from out of town and wanted to start doing lessons with you. And then when coronavirus hit, it really thrust you into needing to do it just to maintain your livelihood. And can you talk a little bit about what you use? Because I know that you use different platforms every day, basically, depending on the situation. Can you talk about what you've learned as far as when to use what and what makes a difference? I know the answer, but I want you to say it.
I use, primarily, I have to say I use FaceTime. Every time I've used Zoom, except for now, it's been disappointing. So I think maybe the problem with that is I don't have the other people do enable original sound, and that may make the difference. I've used WhatsApp video sporadically. I've used Skype. The European people seem to want to use Skype. I've used, Anya and I use Instagram video. I've used Facebook Messenger video. And again, the major is the FaceTime. Now, in terms of what works when, where, and how, totally random. And I mean totally random. Nellie made this wonderful log for me, and I very diligently said, okay, I taught this lesson on this day. The quality was this, it was FaceTime, it was Skype, it was this, that, the other thing. There was no rhyme or reason. There was never, oh, well, this time of day, everybody seems to be on the internet and it's worse. Or this time of day, there was literally no pattern to it. Some days it miraculously was wonderful, and other days it was just crap. Some days it was so sporadic that we changed platforms. I said, you know, FaceTime's not working. Let's find something else. What do you want to do this on? Let's try Skype. Let's try something else. Let's see. And something else may work on that day and not the FaceTime, or the Skype may not work and the FaceTime works.
Yeah, so that just proves that it's not always the internet connection. But what I was explaining to Donna when we were trying to see, is it something pattern-wise? Can we know that on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock, you kind of have to use Instagram, or on Sunday mornings, you have to use FaceTime? And when we realized that it wasn't really rhyme or reason, I work in tech a lot, and I said, you know, Donna, there's just so many variables to it that there's not really a way to determine, because it has to do with the other person's business. It has to do with the sirens outside that day, and it has to do with their broadband connection and your broadband connection and everyone else that's in your building online at that very moment. So, you know, are the Oscars streaming? Maybe it's going to be worse. Like, you know, we never know. And it's so many variables that it's not even worth trying to figure it out once you realize there's not a viable pattern. And so, you know, that's exactly what I said. I was like, Donna, there's not going to be a way for us to be like, well, this is what it is. And so if you're finding it's not a good connection, switch platforms and see if you can find one there. And I find that, you know, that's one of the frustrations that people get with virtual everything, is they're frustrated by the fact that it's not consistent. It's not the same as being live with someone. But it's not going to be. I mean, there's, and
Right.
that's what I said from the beginning in my own virtual, like, ambassadorship, as it were, is that it's never meant to replace face-to-face. It's
Correct.
meant to subsidize or enhance. And so in a scenario where we cannot be face-to-face, would you rather do no lesson?
Exactly.
Or this lesson? And for me, this lesson is better than no lesson.
No question.
Absolutely.
No question.
And for me, it's just a different way of learning. Again, I'm always learning as a teacher. It's a different way of learning how to hear. I have to hear sounds slightly differently. So I just tune my ear to that and say, okay, go with the flow, hear it differently. And obviously I'm still able to have an impact with the lessons for people, and it's going to help.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Donna,
And
you had, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and the lesson you don't feel that, oh, I didn't get all I needed from that lesson because it was visual.
Yeah.
You're getting the same, and you feel like you've worked and you've done what you had to do in the lesson as if you were live. So
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's like a lifeline because when I was living in New York, I was like, what the hell am I going to do now? And that we were able to establish these video lessons, to me, it's like, huh, it's life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Donna, you had mentioned earlier about how you realize that most people consume performance and music through a video medium anyway. And that's a thing that on an acting standpoint with like film and TV, obviously like classes and stuff have all moved online before coronavirus, because of coronavirus. And the thing, and actors are having resistance to it because they're like, I'm just better in the room, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, sure, except that when you're in the room, they're still going to record you and send that to the director. So you still, like, whether you're in the room or not, you're still going to be on tape. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, when people are like, well, I just can't hit, you know, this whatever, you know, like these feelings or these moments, when you watch film and TV, they're not in the room with you, but you're having all of the emotional reactions, you know, so it's a thing too, that even after all of this happens, the word that I'm getting from all of the like agencies and casting directors is they're like, we're probably not going to stop doing this because I'm getting the preview immediately of what you look like on tape. And then the thing that I mentioned of like, they can see more people because they don't have to block off the time and like the travel or anything. It's like, oh, I have an audition in 5 minutes. Cool. Boom. Let's go.
Yeah. The convenience of this. And
yeah,
really, I'm grateful that I am able to teach people literally all over the world. I just had a student in Taiwan. I have students in Germany. I have students in Switzerland. I have students in Belgium. I have students in France. I mean, you know, California, Wichita, Kansas. I mean, all over the place. You know, Gabi's in Ohio. You know, it's, you know, that's a blessing for me that I could reach people all over.
Yeah, and we should ask Nellie, who's been managing the technical aspect of this whole enterprise. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm
Yes.
all for getting people into technology. I think that it's important. For exactly the reason we're talking about, because you can take your industry global, you know, even performers are doing concerts digitally and they're reaching, you know, I know, for instance, Jim Caruso's cast party that he does every week at Birdland, he has been reaching 8,000 viewers a night, where at Birdland, they've got a house of, I don't know, 150, let's say. I don't know what the house actually is at Birdland, but let's say it's 300. It's still not 8,000. And
right.
I asked him recently, I said, are they going to continue to broadcast it? And he said, yeah, one of the things they're doing right now is in the club, they're actually installing cameras, because why not? It can be a reduced
right.
fee. Why not pay the music fee and see Birdland every night if you're in Ohio or if you're in San Francisco?
Right.
And what's helpful for me too, and you know, is that I can come in and out as I'm able to. I may not be able to travel downtown, go to the whole show, stay for 2 drinks, watch 7 people before my friend is on, and then also go back. But I don't mind paying the music fee just to see my friend perform, or even see 2 or 3 people that I'm interested in, and then slip out also because I'm not able to stay for whatever reason, like I have a work commitment or whatever. But
right.
I'm really into it, and I think that I think we're going to be in some kind of a digital revolution coming up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And Nellie, I have to thank you 1,000 million times for all that you do for me and my channel and everything that you do. And I know it's a labor of love for you. And I don't have even enough words to say.
Absolutely my pleasure. It's absolutely my pleasure. So, yeah.
Can I just say one more thing?
Absolutely.
What I love about this too is that part of the reason, so I travel a lot, which is why I stopped. I don't trust anyone else with my voice except for Donna. So for me, it literally was, I'm with Donna or I'm not taking lessons, and that's just what happened. So the fact that it's exciting to me that I can have Donna whenever now, like even when things go back to normal, I will literally be in my dressing room having a lesson. Like I can have it forever. And that makes me so excited because I never have to go without anymore. Because I literally don't trust anyone with my voice, and I never will. except for Donna. So now I can have her forever. There's no excuse anymore. And that's like the best part about it. I can have her in my living room, in my dressing room, in my backyard. Like, it's great.
Yep,
Exactly.
Thank you.
for sure.
Donna, I had one more question for you, regarding Martin's lesson. There are instances where where you're in a show and you're actually having to perform and you come in and you're tired. And what are the best ways to be able to perform tired, and still give full performance, but also not damage your voice? Because I think that's
The most important thing to remember is you're tired. It's not going to feel the same. It's not going to sound the same, but you can't do anything differently. So what happens is that everybody overcompensates for the fact that they're tired, and they'll start to push. The minute you start to push, you're dead in the water. I will tell you, the overwhelming majority of people, the adrenaline will take over, and you just put yourself on automatic pilot and do it. That's all you need to do. The minute you think, oh, I'm tired, I better, and it'll happen. You'll start to warm up and you'll say, oh man, that feels like crap. I don't know what to do. You just do what you do, because right in the moment, yeah, you're tired, your voice is not working. Again, some of the things I did with Martin, there are some little technical things that you can do. But when it comes right down to, okay, now I have to get out there and perform, you just do what you do without the pushing. And it happens a lot when people get sick. I've had to fix people who've had to go on sick, Broadway shows, they've been sick, they've had to go on. The minute you're sick, it doesn't feel the same, it doesn't sound the same. You try to change what you're doing, that's what throws you off. You start to push, you change what you're doing, and yeah, it's not going to feel or sound the same. But then if you start to do something differently, you're going to make it even worse than whatever's going on. So that's the problem that most people have when they're tired or if they're a little bit sick. You just have to rest whenever you can find the rest, sing through it best you can, and then, rest and gather up for the next time.
Yeah, great. Any final comments? I know we've taken a lot of people's time today, so I want to say thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you all.
But is there any final comments anyone wants to chime in on?
I just want to say it's such a privilege to be Donna's student, and it's a great pleasure for me to get to know all of you. I heard a little bit of Martin because I came after him many times. I listened to Nellie as well because I came after her a couple of times, so she came after me. But it's a pleasure to know all of you. You're fabulous singers with great voices, so I just enjoy it so much.
Thank you all again for doing this.
Thanks for watching Donna Reid Talks Voice. If you have any questions for me about this episode, please visit my website and click Contact.